I was one of 10 participants in the Regenerative Vineyards of McLaren Vale Wine Region project. I learned that soil health is very important for my nearly 60-year-old bush vine Grenache to help them continue to produce high quality McLaren Vale fruit. But also soil health is critically important in the global race to net zero carbon emissions by 2035.
I gained knowledge across the region, not just for our block, of different ways of making our soils better in more natural ways, as well as our vines and ecosystems, and everyone's different thinking across the board for making our soils better. Yeah, just more of a different outlook of how to maintain plants with natural resources we've got at our disposal. So we looked at ours, we found we did have our nutrient levels up in the right areas, but we were finding that we were killing our microbes and the top layer. So it was sort of a negative to a positive sort of situation. Also with us, we did mulch and worm juice as well. Other products we found that do similar things will activate microbes, and then also trying to retain moisture. We're in a bit of a dry spell as well, so trying to combine all those things in together of maintaining good soil health to make our vines grow better for the long term. When you're digging under the vines, you can sort of see that the plant's being active, just trying to make that soil healthier as a long-term plan, rather than just nuking the whole soil and killing the soil off pretty much. Microactivity is what helps activate your nutrients in your soil so the plant can maintain that, because if they're not active, they'll sort of lock those nutrients in the ground, which means they ultimately become useless and they just sit there for years on years and years. As we find with like synthetic fertilizers, they tend to, yeah, you do get a little bit of a benefit from them, but then a lot of it just gets locked away in the soil because they've killed off those microbes around it. When you dig under the vine, you'll get there and you'll be able to tell, you'll get all your feeder roots, which obviously have all the little hairs. So if you don't have very healthy soil underneath, you won't have all those feeder roots feeding out into a nice big web, pretty much is the easiest way to explain it. We went through and did a trial of one row with mulch, one row without mulch, just to test the yield differences and plant health in the difference. So the one with mulch underneath, we had a higher yieldage and healthier, like healthy berries, healthy plant, compared to a row that had no mulch underneath, had more shriveled up berries at that stage, and the plant was not as healthy, like the leaves were already starting to die off at that stage. And where the one with mulch, the whole plant stayed nice and green for a lot longer and healthier.
I really believe that soil can be something that can change the world, but definitely it can help by getting our soils up and living. So it was a good program. We had some guest speakers who talked to us about soils and the microbiology in the soils, which is actually the main thing. The bacteria, fungi, and how they are in there working if our soils are healthy and not chemical laden. They actually are the things that make it all work. Everything that lands on the soil is being turned into basically food for our plants. The microbes break down the matter in the soil and make it available to the vines or whatever you're growing. And we're not just growing vines, we have to realise that all our soil being covered is really important. I think for this regenerative soil and making sure the microbes are there, they do not live where there's bare soil. We have monocultures, so by growing vines, so if we can actually have other things growing, and you probably notice I run a pretty messy vineyard. We can easily manage with slashing or whippersnipping, or I tend not to disc or turn the soil, but just trying to keep that green there. All the stuff we need is probably there, the phosphorus, the nitrogen. Most of the stuff we need is there because it's been accumulating over the hundreds or thousands or millions of years. And often it is there, but it's not bioavailable unless we have the microbes that are breaking it down and making it available. What I've really focused on is compost. So that's the bit I love, is the making of the compost, and then using that compost. You can use it on your soils, but obviously you'd have to make a lot to do that. But there's a much simpler way of doing it, which is just then turning it into a tea. And you can spray that out, spray it out. It's basically food for microbes, which is great. So if we can keep them happy and multiplying, yeah, they'll be working for us. In summer, there's not much point in spraying your soil because it's pretty dry. Although you're spraying, as I say, you've got the grass and things that you can spray. So the vines do actually take it in, but you're trying to get it down to your roots. It's like anything. I mean, if we're spraying any kind of fertiliser, and basically what it is a fertiliser, it's just a very natural fertiliser, and even better, it's something that you can make, costs you almost nothing, which means you can put on as much as you like. You cannot put too much of this stuff on. When we first started doing this, the group of 10 of us, and we had to do a self-assessment as to where we thought we were, and most of us, all of us knew we had to try a lot harder and change it up. So for me, I've chosen the compost. I've chosen a lot of other things as well. Just planting more, wherever I don't have vines, planting more bushes, shrubs, whatever. Definitely not spraying chemicals. Also, synthetic fertilisers are a bit of a no-no because that's not very good for the mycorrhizal. Climate change is another one, and I really believe in this regenerative soil stuff. It's made me go to lots more classes. I've just been up to Auburn to see what they're doing up in the McLaren Vale. Everywhere I look where people are doing it, they're happier, but their vineyards or their farms or their whatever just seem to be doing better. And it's so much better for the environment. And one of the great things about it is it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's not like going and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on fertiliser and other things. We can do it on our farms, and I absolutely believe we can have an effect on climate change.
We began by completing an index created by the Regenerative Viticulture Foundation. Then we took soil samples in our chosen vineyard blocks, and then we completed a session where we learned how to interpret the data from the soil sample results. In that session, I learned how to look at the data and how to interpret what all the facts and figures meant in relation to practical steps in my vineyard. I learned that there was more than one component, chemical, physical and biological, and each of these elements can be targeted separately or collaboratively. To improve my soil health, I've changed from planting a single species cover crop to a multi-seed cover crop that contains at least 4 different species. The aim being that it will create a functional biodiversity and a healthy ecosystem in the soil to make nutrients available to my vines. So I chose to implement a diverse cover crop because I'm on sandy soils here, and my soil results showed that we had low microbial activity within the soil. So a cover crop, especially a diverse mix, was an easy way to increase the functional biodiversity within my vineyard. As an added benefit, the cover crops I've chosen will have the benefit of reducing erosion and outcompeting invasive weeds. So my medium-term outcomes that I expect to see is an increase in microbial activity within my soil. And then long-term, I'm hoping to get to a point where we've got a almost permanent sward within the vineyard to keep that biodiversity all year round. My hope for the region is that McLaren Vale wine region leads the world in regenerative viticulture, and that we're the proof that healthy soils are a win for all. Healthy vines, premium fruit, and a reduction of carbon in the atmosphere.